What if the dog sleeping beside you right now isn't just a pet, but a living symbol placed in your life by divine design? What if I discovered this truth through my own profound experience decades ago, yet the world is too distracted to listen? I once observed that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what I discovered about dogs goes far deeper than anyone imagined. Today, I want to share with you my hidden wisdom about why God placed dogs in our lives, drawn from my own personal observations and experiences. If you've ever felt like your dog sees straight into your soul, if you've wondered why their presence brings such peace, listen carefully. What I discovered about the spiritual bond between humans and dogs will change everything you thought you knew about your four-legged companion. If this message is already stirring something in your heart, don't forget to share it with someone. I didn't just study the human mind, I studied the soul. And in my private writings, I spoke of dogs as what I called carriers of the unconscious divine. I believe that God works through symbols, and dogs, I argued, were among the most powerful symbols ever placed on earth. In my personal journal, I wrote, "The dog does not think as we think, yet it knows what we need before we ourselves know it. This is not mere instinct. This is the divine working through the unconscious realm." I understood something that modern psychology is only beginning to rediscover. Dogs exist in a state of pure being, untainted by the ego that separates us from our true selves. They live in the eternal now, connected to something deeper than conscious thought. When I observed my own dog, I noted that animals possess what I termed natural wisdom, an intuitive understanding of the human soul that bypasses all intellectual barriers. But here's what I discovered that will amaze you. I believe that dogs were placed in our lives not by accident, but as spiritual teachers sent to guide us back to our authentic selves. In my own words, the animal teaches us what we have forgotten in our pursuit of civilization, how to simply be. Have you ever noticed how your dog doesn't judge your worst days? They don't analyze your mistakes or hold grudges about your failures. This is called unconditional positive regard, and I believe it was a direct reflection of how the divine sees us. Your dog's love isn't earned through performance or good behavior. It simply exists, constant and unwavering, like divine grace itself. I wrote extensively about what I called the shadow, those parts of ourselves we try to hide or deny. But dogs, I observed, accept our entire being, shadow and light together. They don't need us to be perfect. They love us in our brokenness, in our vulnerability, in our raw humanity. I believe this acceptance wasn't coincidental. It was purposeful, designed to heal the wounds that shame and self-judgment create in our souls. In one of my most powerful insights, I noted the dog serves as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious realms. Through their presence, we access parts of our soul that civilization has taught us to suppress. When your dog curls up beside you during your darkest moments, they're not just offering comfort. According to my understanding, they're facilitating individuation, the process of becoming whole. My concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be random, often involved animals, especially dogs. I documented dozens of cases where dogs appeared in people's lives at precisely the moment they were needed most. A rescue dog finding a suicidal person, a stray appearing just as someone was facing their deepest loneliness. I didn't see these as coincidences. I saw them as acts of grace manifested through the animal kingdom. Also, science validates what I intuited. Research shows that dogs can detect changes in human brain chemistry, sensing depression, anxiety, and even physical illness before symptoms appear. They respond to our cortisol levels, our heart rate variations, our subtle emotional shifts. But I went further. I believe dogs weren't just detecting these changes. They were responding to a spiritual calling to serve as healers. I observed that dogs naturally practice what I called active imagination, living fully in the present moment while remaining deeply attuned to invisible energies around them. They demonstrate what I considered the highest form of spiritual existence, being completely present while staying connected to the transcendent realm. When your dog stares into your eyes with that knowing look, I believe they're seeing not just you, but the divine spark within you. But my most profound insight about dogs relates to the wounded healer. Just as many rescue dogs come from backgrounds of trauma, yet become sources of healing for others, I saw this as a divine pattern. I wrote, "The dog who has known suffering becomes the most powerful healer, for it understands the depths of pain and the heights of redemption." Your rescued dog doesn't just need healing. According to my understanding, they're designed to provide it. I also recognize that dogs serve as guardians of the threshold. In ancient mythologies, dogs were often depicted as guides between worlds, protectors of sacred spaces. I believe this wasn't metaphor but reality. Dogs, I argued, help us navigate the space between our conscious fears and our unconscious wisdom. They stand guard over our vulnerability, creating safe spaces where healing can occur. I noted something that pet owners intuitively understand. Dogs seem to absorb our negative emotions without being destroyed by them. I call this psychic transmission, the ability to take on another's emotional burden and transform it. I believe dogs are divinely equipped for this sacred work, serving as emotional alchemists who transform our pain into peace. My personal relationship with my dog revealed even deeper insights. I wrote, "My dog knows when I am troubled before I myself am aware of it. This is not mere observation but spiritual attunement. The dog lives in communion with forces beyond our rational understanding." I believe that dogs exist in a state of natural prayer, constantly connected to the divine source in ways that humans have forgotten. In my exploration of dreams and symbols, I frequently encountered dogs as representations of loyalty, protection, and divine guidance. I observed that people who dreamed of dogs were often being called to reconnect with their authentic selves, to embrace the qualities that dogs embody: loyalty, presence, unconditional love, and fierce protection of what matters most. My concept of the collective unconscious, the shared psychic material that connects all of humanity, included the canine archetype. I believe that our deep connection to dogs taps into ancient memories of partnership, loyalty, and mutual support that shaped human evolution. But more than evolutionary psychology, I saw this as spiritual design, a divine plan that placed dogs alongside humans as companions on the journey toward wholeness. Perhaps my most beautiful insight was my understanding of silent communication. I observed that dogs and humans share a language that transcends words, a form of soul-to-soul connection that bypasses the rational mind. When you sit in comfortable silence with your dog, I believe you're experiencing what I called communion of spirits, a taste of the divine connection that awaits us in our fullest spiritual development. I recognize that modern humans often struggle with what I termed spiritual loneliness, the disconnection from transcendent meaning that characterizes so much of contemporary life. But dogs, I observed, naturally bridge this gap. They anchor us in love while pointing us toward something greater than ourselves. They demonstrate that the sacred isn't found in complex theology, but in simple presence, faithful love, and willing service. My final insight about dogs might be my most powerful. Dogs don't just reflect divine love, they participate in it. In my own words, the love we receive from our dogs is not separate from divine love. It is divine love expressed through a form we can understand and receive. When your dog loves you, according to my understanding, you're experiencing God's love made tangible, personal, and immediate. So as you look at your sleeping dog tonight, remember my profound discovery. They're not just pets who happened into your life. They're divine appointments, spiritual teachers, wounded healers sent to guide you toward wholeness. They're living prayers, constant reminders of how the divine sees you, perfectly loved, completely accepted, eternally cherished. What moment with your dog suddenly makes more sense through my lens? Share your story to people so we can approach more people. Thanks for listening. And remember, your dog isn't just man's best friend. According to my understanding, they're God's gift to your soul.